welcome to the 21st episode of the CamerataCast. This is your host as Andres. This is your host as always, Andres Marquez, coming to you from Whittier, California, and I have today with me somebody from way out in the middle of the Inland Empire.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, like miles and miles away in another whole other region of the SoCal area. This is Rebecca Ustrell, artist and publisher. Why don't you introduce yourself further?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here on the virtual podcast. I am Rebecca Ustrell, or Ustrell, you can say it either way. People ask, so that's why I'm explaining. I am an artist, as Andres said, and I am the founder and editor in chief of Curious Publishing. That is a nonprofit publishing hub right here based out of my room in Upland, California. We do pop ups all over the IE and Los Angeles area, although we haven't in the last year done much. But basically, we publish our quarterly magazine, Curious. We have our biannual lifestyle and culture magazine, Abyme, and we help folks out publish their independent titles. So if an artist has a collection of work that they want bound together in a physical book, we are experts in providing layout services, e-commerce services. Our goal is to get as many BIPOC and queer artists paid in the IE as we can, and we've been around since 2017.
Hell yeah, yeah. Y'all are one of I guess you're one of the most visible. How do you say artist organizations? To me at least, because I see y'all do so many events. Even in this time of the pandemic, I've seen y'all starting up your events again. Y'all work with so many different local illustrators and local visual artists. It's incredible how is prolific the right word?
I think so. I've heard people use it.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
own
just
it. I'll own that.
it's just so cool how much reach y'all have, and y'all also work with a whole bunch of different how would you say, like, brick and mortar shops. Like, I've seen y'all's work at Neon Moon Art Supply out in Claremont, very lovely place. Seen y'all's work at Vital Pomona. It's really cool to see such amazing, like, local representation in these local shops. So all the power to you and your mission.
Thanks, for sure. It has been a slowly building infrastructure. Since 2017 when we launched the magazine, it started on the basis of a network of artists that I had met when I was a voluntary event organizer for Claremont Art Walk. So I was helping organize a pop up gallery in Claremont for a year or so. I started right after that helping organize Ontario Art Walk pop ups. And using that network, I gathered the first group of artists for our first magazine. So uh, naturally, I wanted to see where we can get this physical magazine more visibility. So I honestly leaned on my network of business owners that I had met through different past careers in fundraising, working in downtown Claremont for a while. So I'm glad to hear that you're seeing Curious's name all over. I'm trying to grow that. So hopefully we'll expand our reach even more now that the world is opening back up and people are ready to, get out there again.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm most excited for. Like, in this past month or so, I've seen people throwing events, and especially y'all. I've seen flyers for your different events. Y'all have one coming up on March 29th, I believe, or not March, May 29th, I believe.
Yes, we are going to do a zine fest, a IRL zine fest. So I am super stoked about it. Basically, my buddies at Caps and Drip, um, Paolo, who's one of the partners there, he has been helping me with some new merch for Curious, and I'm there often. And he just, point blank was like, it would be great if we could do like a zine fest. Like, are you down for that? I'm like, totally down for that. I have vendors that are pretty much itching to do something like this in person. They offered up their venue, and we already have 18 vendors signed up. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be so cool.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a wicked time. Very excited for y'all. Yeah, so earlier you mentioned that this had started in 2017. So y'all are nearing 4 years strong. So that's awesome. I did kind of want to ask, what was the, how would you say, the catalyst for Curious Publishing? What kind of made you want to go out and like begin this project?
Sure, that's a great question. I personally, the passion grew from a love for design, layout, and printed matter. So, I collect catalogs, postcards, pamphlets, high end magazines, low end magazines, zines, you know, from antique to new stuff. I just love, there's something really satisfying about seeing all these like things printed out. I like to say that it was like my first exposure to art was, opening an encyclopedia and seeing all this text and pictures, in the art section of an encyclopedia. And there's something about that that I always held on to. It, I didn't really grow up with that much access to galleries in a formal sense. So I would lean on the materials that I would find to educate myself on the art that I could find in a book or in a magazine or a pamphlet or what have you. So having that passion for printed material and design layout, typography, I held onto that for a while. I didn't really know exactly how to express it. I taught myself how to use the Adobe Creative Suite with InDesign and Illustrator, and in any career that I had, I tried to be the person that was like, "Oh, you need a flyer made? Like, I want to do that." Like, I really wanted to see my designs printed out. Fast forward to late 2017, my volunteer term for Claremont Art Walk was just about up. During that period of time when I was helping with Claremont Art Walk, I was also designing and laying out the Art Walk map, which included a listing of all galleries. Sometimes it included pictures of the chosen artworks. We basically highlight a gallery and an artist's work on the cover of that map, and that was my introduction to layout in a more formal sense on a zine scale. So I had that knowledge of doing print layout, and I had that passion for the arts, both being an artist myself and having a big network. And once my volunteer term was up, I really didn't want to like see that momentum die, and I just decided, if all these people can run a zine fest, or these there's zinesters at every level of expertise, I think that I can, experiment and try something out. So that's what I did. I don't honestly know exactly how I came up with the word curious, other than I had used the word in one of my art show titles for one of my solo shows. It was called Curious Pleasures.
Hmm.
And I liked the word curious. It was short, looked good in print whenever I did see it on a poster. And I decided to hit up some of my friends, some local businesses, and compile what was to become the first Curious magazine, which at the time um, didn't have any plans for future issues. It was a one-off. I wanted it to go along with the pop-up show that I wanted to throw with it, basically a vendor event, since I had some experience organizing that. But it caught the attention of local artists and also a local nonprofit called the Arts Area, who thought that it had a lot of potential to be something that is recurring. And that actually didn't happen until 2018. But the first time I ever used the word curious publishing on anything was when I was in the experimental phase making zines for my own art.
Awesome. That's such a lovely history how it started with just like a passion, a specific fixation on something. I totally dig that.
Yeah, I was just like that person that had boxes and boxes of paper because I was just like, look at the layout on this flyer. Like, I'm not going to throw that away. Like, that's great.
Yeah, so I also kind of, I picked up on how do you say this is not just the home of Curious and I suppose Curious related zines like a Beam. Y'all also help other local artists and local creators publish their work. I remember one of the most recent ones that I've seen was Calamity. That was really cool. I think. Oh no, I did miss that event, that release event. But y'all published Calamity. Y'all published Post COVID, which is another cool one that I dug. So how does that process go about? Do folks kind of like reach out to y'all, like, hey, I noticed that y'all do like this amazing, publishing work, and you have amazing design and stuff like that. Can I work with you? Or is it more of like y'all reach out to others, you see artists, and you make that connection? Um,
You
I
know,
just wanted to know how that goes.
yeah, it started out definitely with us, meaning me, reaching out to my friends and saying, do you have, I noticed you made a zine before. Do you want me to figure out how to get you a better price cut and like print 100 for you, and then we can split profits? I can handle the shipping. So it started out with like, okay, we have Curious Magazine, we have Abyme now. Now I want more stuff in our store. I want to support artists and pay them, because Curious Magazine, the sales that we collect from that actually reprints the next issue. It's totally self-sufficient machine at this point, but it's not. It wasn't necessarily paying artists, which is what my true dream was to get artists like a flow of income. So I put out a submission page tab on our website, and ever since then, which was, I think it was a year into Curious, is when I launched the website and put a submissions tab. People will just organically, they'll know about us from Instagram, they'll click our submissions link, and they'll write a brief proposal. And what I do is I just remain flexible, keep my ears open, and try to make whatever they want of their project to come to life, but also give them advice based on my experience. So it's every level. Like with Daniel Whitfield with Post COVID, he had already designed the layout. He was already working with several other distributors, but he wanted to somehow include Curious because I'm from the IE and so is he. We both went to Chaffey College together, and that's how we had that connection. He was just like, like, would you be interested in printing these out for me? And in return, like, you can keep this many stock. And so that was that agreement. But sometimes we get artists that are from square one. They have the idea, but they don't actually have the skills or time or a combination of the two to do the layout and get them printed, and they need help with distribution. So it's a flexible like web of services. Like, do you need help with layout? Do you need help with commerce? Do you need help with shipping, packaging? Do you need a photographer? Do what do you need? Like, based on the network of artists that I've gained over the course of the last few years with Curious, like I have the network of people that have these services to make someone's project really come to life. So that's something that we'll be building, I think, indefinitely. With every project we create, we grow that network to help artists with different aspects of their project.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, ah, sorry, got a little crick in my neck for a sec. If you don't mind me kind of, I wouldn't say this is necessarily tangential, but if you don't mind me kind of uh, going off the path of this current conversation we're having, I did also want to ask, what is the organization of Curious like? Because you do describe yourself as the editor in chief, but earlier you did say, by us, I mean me. So that I definitely understand that kind of like, that sort of identification wholly with this project and with this company. But I did want to ask, are there folks who regularly collaborate with you on Curious, not just in the sense of like you having their art in your work, but people who help design and people who help promote that kind of stuff? Is it really just you in that you know in occupying every position for this company?
So when I said by us, I mean me. When I was talking about that specific time of Curious in the beginning, it really just was me. It was just me in terms of getting design, layout, all the artists compiled. getting things printed, marketing, running the website. So I was the only person in the beginning that was really rooted in every aspect of Curious Publishing. But since the beginning, I've collaborated with photographers, event organizers to help with the other side of Curious, which is the visible side. So if I had a couple different photographers I would ask to help me capture artist portraits to then be published in the magazine. um, but that was kind of like the limit. Was I had occasional volunteers, I would say, close collaborators that were my close friends at the time. And what was really limiting in the beginning was lack of funds. I didn't want to ask a lot from someone that I couldn't actually pay, so I would be really conservative with my asks, and try and keep people in my network, because I always knew that eventually, that pot of money would grow and I would be able to hire people. Well, that didn't really happen until last year, where I
Mm.
started paying people on a contract basis. So now I have three contracted workers that are regulars. I'm the editor in chief and founder. So basically, I am the owner. I don't use the term CEO because we're nonprofit, and it's really not. I feel like it's not a fitting title for me. And that's a whole other conversation where you have a little bit of imposter syndrome. You really don't know what to call yourself. You've never been a business owner before. But I oversee all the projects now, but now I have a staff that specifically works on Curious Magazine. So the structure is, you know I meet with now head editor Sherry May Jackson. There is our lead journalist Mariah Green, and we have a graphic designer Kaylin, and that is our Curious Magazine staff. I have a Abby Magazine staff as well, which includes Kaylin again, and then my friend Haley McMullen. She used to be down from the Pomona area, moved up to Ventura for a while, so we were remote collaborators. Now she's back in SoCal, so Haley's back in the loop of things. I have people that help me on event day. So Amanda Cicia, she is one of the co-founders of Consumption Collab and also just a close friend and art collaborator. She would help out whenever I did in-person events, so I'll be collaborating with her again soon. And since the beginning, my partner Sam has actually been the person that will drive me to events, help me pack up boxes, table at events, bartend, all those little things where you need someone there to help you carry things. And back then when I started up, I actually didn't even have a car. I barely got a car, like, what, last year.
Oh
It's
wow.
been almost a year since I've had um, a car again, because for a few years when I started Curious, I actually didn't have a car, but somehow made all this stuff work. So as of now, I actually do have team members. If you go on the curiouspublishing.org about page, there's a list of my current collaborators. Oh, and I can't forget to mention Nicholas. Nicholas Aceves has actually been a designer with me since the beginning, and he's a collaborator that I met through the Artlands. So that's one of our other close networks of people.
Awesome, nice. Yeah, that's really cool that there's just like a big network of folks that you've kind of, you know, you've you've grown from this point where it was very, as you said, conservative in how much you could ask from folks to this becoming very self-sustaining, a source of contracted employment for many folks, and that's such a amazing thing. That's like a big dream for me and the Camerata. Um, not to like I guess go too deep into what the Camerata is, but it's very confusing. It's like it's really just me posting random stuff on social media and promoting people that I really whose work I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Um but honestly, like the way that Curious is organized and all the different projects y'all have and how it works just so cleanly, at least from an outside perspective, how just like efficient it seems and how organized it seems, like that's a huge dream for me with the Camerata. I just really want to like, you know, that seems like a template for me to like get my own shit together and create something more like
It's a
yeah.
good start having a company that is detached from your own name, because let me tell you, like, no one's ever, well, people that don't actually know me never have realized that Curious was just me for so long.
Hmm.
I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't really put my own art in much things. I wanted it to really be a reflection of IE artists, and I just started setting these goals that maybe I was a little afraid of at first. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have a magazine in 3 months, like, and I'm gonna announce a date. Which for a lot of people, if they don't know for sure it's gonna happen, they just simply won't make a goal like that or make it go public. But I have this weird, like, fearless gene where I'm just like, "Of course I can do it, even if it's not great." Like, I can put out something that's 10 pages, like, it's not impossible. It might not be as great as I want it to be. And you just start setting these little deadlines, and it snowballs into this big, beautiful thing that might not be perfect, but in the beginning, it was better than nothing. I was like, let's just see what happens. And once you start expanding your circle, people want to help and make it better. And that's how we, found people like Sherry and Mariah to make it even better and running even more smoothly. So, yeah, that's my little 2 cents about you need a little bit of fearlessness to grow.
Hmm. That's gnarly. That's something I've definitely got to deal with. Just like not being afraid to fail, or to at least like, I don't know, just being able to like accept that success doesn't always occur immediately.
Absolutely. I'm here to talk about that whenever you need it. And here to help you if I can.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
You're too kind. In that vein, I guess I also do want to ask, like, what are some of the challenges that you have faced with Curious, and like, what are some of the challenges that you still kind of experience to this day? Of course, like, I asked this to a bunch of folks, and a lot of folks we immediately go to COVID, because that in itself is like a big old tangle of challenges and hardships, but in general, when it's come to the nearly 4 year history of Curious, what has been something that you've kind of had to deal with on like a constant or near constant basis that's like maybe not hindered your growth, but at the very least kind of like, set up an obstacle for you to surpass?
Yeah, as you were saying that, I definitely started to have kind of like I don't know what to start with, like a somatic reaction to it. Like I felt like tense, my eyes are wandering. My mind went to a few different areas.
Oh, I'm sorry
Um,
about that.
no, no, not in a bad way. I like being verbal about like my reactions to what people are asking, and it's a good question. There's different levels of things that are challenging. So initially, what was the most challenging was getting over the fact that collaborating is going to mean that you are going to have to just surrender to the personalities of some maybe difficult people. So, we're talking about artists here. Like artists notoriously are creative and they don't necessarily like deadlines. So if you want to have this beautiful art magazine come together, but you have to just kind of surrender to their schedules. Like, okay, they're going to get it in eventually. They're going to submit their stuff. You set the deadline, but you be really flexible with it. There's always this joke on the back end where I'm like, there's the deadline and then there's the real deadline. Like I'm going to tell people that they need their stuff on a date. But really it's due 2 weeks later.
Very
So we
smart.
have that buffer that guarantees that no one's disappointed or let down. And we also extend our network out so that if this one feature doesn't get completed on the back end during production, we have these three other ones lined up that are going to go through. Or if this one feature doesn't get this artist doesn't submit their work on time, then we'll just feature them in the next one. You know what I mean? Or do something else to promote their artwork. There's always a solution. I try not to be super strict with myself on that end. So, have you ever experienced this with some of your collaborators?
Always.
Okay. So,
Like,
so I just don't want to sound like an asshole. I'm like, am I being an asshole?
oh, no, I don't think so. Like, you're definitely right, and I think you are doing one of the more, empathetic and kinder things in making a sort of soft deadline that's like 2 or so weeks ahead of the other deadline.
Yeah,
Because I don't know, I personally feel like you're right. Like artists have all this stuff going on in their life. A lot of artists are also working a job. They're also doing a whole bunch of other projects. So for me, like attitudes regardless, it always feels like I'm the one who's kind of got the burden of proof on my shoulders, where it's like I really would love to have your work, but like in this specific project that we're doing, but I also really don't want to like, bug you or anything like that. Like that's how I've come to like put deadlines up to like a month ahead of where we were like originally planning to release, just because it's
sure.
like, yeah, it's I
Yeah,
don't know, you're
but that
definitely right though.
that is an ongoing thing that just I've accepted since the beginning, and it's okay, because there always is something that will land that we can promote. And if we have a little break in between, you know what? Self-care. We can just be quiet for a couple weeks. I'm fine with that. So that's definitely ongoing. Something that some people may not realize is when you're featuring many artists, there's bound to be a moment where you're going to feature someone that you didn't really know much about their background or maybe their personal indiscretions. And I've had several moments where I'll get private messages of individuals saying, I know that you're representing this artist or you publish this artist, but I just want you to know that, I had a really bad experience with them personally. Maybe I am amplifying a voice that I should have looked into more. And that's something that I've always been really hard on myself. Like, why didn't I look into this artist that turned out to be someone's abuser? Like,
Mm,
how do I judge that whenever I'm looking at just physical manifestations of their art? It's not often, so I'm not saying that this happens all the time. It's happened a few times, but it's something that just simply happens when you're representing many voices. Inland Empire is a huge population. San Bernardino County, the biggest county in the country.
mm-hmm.
Um, you're bound to come across this stuff, but it's something that I want to work on. Is maybe getting to know the people I'm collaborating with on a deeper sense whenever I can, just to make sure that I am uplifting the voices that I want to uplift. You know what I mean?
I totally get you.
Yeah,
Thankfully, I've never had that sort of experience where somebody's had to tell me like, "Oh, the specific person you're working with has done some very morally dubious actions, either to me or to other people." Um, so again, I'm very thankful for that, but I always have to expect it because you're right. Sometimes people might not publicize these things about themselves.
of
In
course not.
fact,
Yeah.
more often than not, that's the case.
Yeah.
Um,
And I try to be kind too and forgiving. Maybe this is someone's past and they're different now. I always respond to the voices that have concerns in that way. I try to be kind and understanding, and I'm there to listen. And I do, confront these things on a case by case basis, and I try to be open minded in terms of you know and do my diligence when I can. And if I can't always, it is something that I hold against myself, but I think that I can improve on forgiving myself more. Not really
mhm.
sure where I'm going with this rant, but I just wanted to put it out there that when you're collaborating with hundreds of people every year, it can be trying at times when you think you're on a roll, you're publishing this great feature, and then you get this message that is a little dark and you don't really know how to handle it.
Yeesh. Oh, well, I mean, all the power to you for being able to, you know, from what I've seen at least, have a consistent way of dealing with that.
Yeah. Luckily, IE is full of a lot of great people that don't they're really not all that bad. They're actually pretty amazing. It's been in the minority, that's for sure, of these types of situations. It's not that frequent.
Oh, definitely a grateful rate right there.
Um, what else? Honestly, hiring on a staff is difficult because when you've been doing it yourself for so long, you trust yourself, you know how you work, and then all of a sudden you have to surrender to the trust in other people. And That was really hard for me. It has really nothing to do with these people individually. Like Sherry's awesome, or everyone's awesome that I work with. So creative, and they have their own networks, and they bring so much energy into the project that is really invaluable. And I was experiencing some burnout recently, and they're really helping me, keep on track, and I can relax a little bit about it. But whenever you're starting to create these relationships, you realize that you have to like get your shit together because you're like, I can't just tell them like just do it. Like
Yeah.
you have to make a schedule, you have to put the foundation there so that they can really shine and perform well and have a good experience with your project and really become part of the project. And with me, I'm messy with my files. I'm like, I know where the logo is. It's just there. But like, whenever I had to package everything up for other people to work from, it was like a whole other job for a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Jeez, like I that just seems like, I'm not going to say it seems like a hassle, but it seems like something that kind of looms over you at times.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was. I mean, it does even now. I'm better at it. Where I just like, okay, I'm a human. They're humans too. They'll understand if something isn't perfect. But I really try to make sure it's as organized as possible because if I want to be able to, check out for a week or two and come back in and it's still in full production. And that's all leading to my ultimate goal, which is to have a working machine that people are getting paid from. And that takes a lot of effort in organizing and getting all your soldiers lined up or whatever to execute. Okay, that sounded really like hardcore. I'm not that hardcore, but
I like
ducks in
that.
a row. Ducks are a lot nicer than soldiers. Anything.
Get
So,
the firing squad armed and ready.
with canvases and paint.
There we go.
Use nice language. Okay.
You brought up that there is a specific goal, or perhaps even a dream with Curious Publishing, to make this into this self-sustaining project that people get paid from. That, first of all, is very inspiring because, like, that's one of the things I've learned from talking with so many artists for different projects, is that a lot of us, um we don't want fame, we don't want like huge amounts of notoriety. We want to be able to like pay bills and utilities doing the things we love, the things we're passionate about. So I want to ask you specifically, and this is totally something that, um you can opt out on if you want, because I know some people's experience with, um, you know, for lack of a better term, politics, it's kind of, negative. So we don't have to talk about it. If you don't want to, we can cut this out. But I did want to ask if there is anything specific that you feel, even within your community, your city or county, what can be done, either by governments, if you trust them, or by people on the ground, to really help level the playing field for creative workers. Because
That is a great loaded question.
is
And
it?
I will answer it. I think that I really believe that everything is just really organic. I mean, Curious Publishing started very organically. It started from my passion and then also mixed with my network of people, which is really just my friends. Um, so I really think that a community, once they kind of decide collectively that art is important, creativity is important, these venues and shows that are popping up that are creative leaning, um, when there's a demand for it, then other businesses will start to incorporate that aspect into their own business plan, and it'll just snowball from there. And I think that that has been something that's happening in the IE, and it's had a lot of false starts where, a business will start doing these art vendor events, but maybe they'll be too focused on the income, or maybe they'll start letting, people that have just commercial products join their vendor events, and it really takes away from the artists that are creating original work in the IE. And I think it's just really important that business owners take a responsibility if they do want to be part of the creative community to correctly reflect who's truly part of their community and do whatever they can to give resources. I think sharing resources is the number one thing that anyone in a community can do to help uplift each other. I really don't believe in keeping like resources really tight and close to your chest. I don't have a fear that someone's going to take something from me because more times than not people want to help and they're kind. I think like letting go of that paranoia, the preciousness, that's not something I'm really interested in. I'm interested in trying to let people, as many people as I know what I have access to so that they can, reap the benefits of those resources and hopefully in turn they'll gift the same thing to me. And that will just make it a better place. If that makes sense. I don't really know how else to explain it.
No, no, that does make sense, and I totally I agree with you, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that it's important. Um, One thing I will say about COVID, um, because actually, Curious Publishing didn't suffer that much because of the pandemic, which I'm really grateful for. It's
Hmm.
one cool thing about having a publication is you can digitize things really quickly. And when your community lives on Instagram, that didn't go anywhere. So I truly love social media. I'm one of those people where I'm like that social media is awesome and powerful.
Hmm.
But one thing that I will say is I think that everyone knows that when you are suddenly united as a world and pulled out and unplugged from your usual routine and humanity, you're faced with humanity, you start to reassess your values. And I think that it's amazing that so many people are starting to fight for themselves again. Like, I'm not going to go back to this job that was bad for my mental health, for instance. Maybe that's something that's happened for you. It definitely happened for me. I
Hmm.
decided to leave customer service jobs, which just weren't doing it for me. And that was a big risk. I actually didn't lose my job, which was amazing, but I had the opportunity to reassess my values because I had so much time just to myself. And I think that that is the biggest catalyst that has happened for, definitely for SoCal is people, because I really can't speak outside of my bubble. I actually haven't traveled much.
Hmm.
But people are starting to do what they want that's good for their happiness
Hmm.
and whatever functions well for them. So I think that that is like the new seed that has been planted, and hopefully we take care of that plant, which is ourselves and our humanity, and just really nurture what we need and foster those connections that are actually going to be good for our community rather than just kind of a quick fix or just ignoring the problems that are out there that are maybe holding your community back from thriving the way it could.
Amen to that. Yeah, thank you so much for that, for your opinions and your experience on that.
Yeah.
We're going to be winding this cast down a bit. Uh, just want to ask a couple more questions if you don't mind. First off, kind of to round out the, um, I guess the saga of a cast we've had regarding the history of Curious. I do want to ask as well. Um, Excuse me, brain fart. I do want to ask as well. What are some projects that we should expect from y'all coming up within the next few weeks or months? I know that y'all have your first IRL Zine Fest coming up in over a year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we've
Uh,
got that coming
mhm.
up on May 29th. What else have y'all got on the belt?
Sure. So May 29th at Caps and Drip from 11 to 4, Zine Fest. Come ready to make prints. We're going to do a cyanotype workshop. We're going to do a block print workshop, and there's going to be tons of people with their art, both free and low cost. That's the beauty of Zine Fest. So that is going to be located in O'Donovan's Pub, inside and outside, right in downtown Pomona. Then right now, the Curious magazine team is busy compiling our archive issue. So it's called Archive. It's going to be featuring all film photographers from the Inland Empire and LA. So really excited about that. This is the first time we've ever had a Curious magazine that's on one medium. So I'm really stoked about that. It's a push for me to step outside of my comfort zone in terms of narrowing the focus on this one issue, but I think it's going to be awesome. We haven't announced a release date yet, but last week of June. And honestly, we've been scheduling pop ups as often as we can. So the best way to keep up with that is to follow our Instagram or join our mailing list just by going to curiouspublishing.org. You'll get a pop up, plug in your email there, and we send out a newsletter once a month, sometimes twice a month if there's a lot going on. And we are open for submissions. So if anyone has a art book proposal or a zine proposal, a merch idea, a collab they want to do with us, our line is open. Slide into the DMs, tell us what you want. We are at a growth spurt phase right now. After holding back for so long during quarantine, we're ready to get back out there.
Sick. Yeah, I'm super stoked to go to more of the pop-ups and the events and whatnot. Typically they're in like the Pomona slash Inland Empire area. It's a bit tough for me to get to just because I'm all the way out in the boondocks of Whittier. Um, but
Well,
when it when
if you know any places in Whittier we can pop up, I would love to get to know that neighborhood. I hear you
oh
guys have great food culture over there.
Oh hell yeah, that would be awesome to have y'all. Like, I'd love to be able to help. I guess at least get you a place around here because there are a bunch of cool little shops and like restaurants that also do art based events. And we've actually just started up our monthly art walk as well on Greenleaf Avenue, which is kind of our main
Oh,
street.
see,
Um,
this is what I want to hear. I want it like stuff I've never heard of that's literally not that far from me. So let's link up. Talk about
Awesome. Yes, let's do it. Kind
it.
of related to this as well. We typically have a shout outs section at the end of our casts. If there are any creators, individuals, or groups that you kind of want to give some love to on the cast, make folks more aware of their work, you can just say their name, tell us what they do. I know
Absolutely.
you've already like mentioned a whole bunch of folks, but if there's anybody else that you kind of want to give the floor to, please do.
Yeah. If I was a rapper, my shout out track would be like a whole B side. There's just so many people. There's so many people doing some cool shit. Okay, shout out to Jimmy Crates who just released Healing, his new album. We actually released a cassette version of that just came out, and it's almost sold out, but there's still some available. So that's curiouspublishing.org/lo-fi for the cassette, or just follow Jimmy Crates. He's on Spotify. The album's called Healing. Really proud of that
That's.
project.
You
Uh,
said it's on cassette.
yeah, we have 3 cassette releases as of this month. Jimmy is the latest.
That's rad.
It's making a comeback. Let me see
Hell
if I can get
yeah.
the cassette sound on the podcast. No, I don't have the cassette near me. But that was the cassette player. Oh wait, I don't know if you can hear this, but
I can hear you fumbling with the machine.
anyway, we have cassettes.
Oh my god, I miss that sound though, just popping
Yeah,
in
and it's
tapes.
funny because at the last pop up we did with Node Plant House, we had the cassette signing as well, and I also invested in a bunch of cassette players because I'm like, what are the chances that people even have a cassette player? And we ended up selling out of those too. So
Oh my
we also
gosh.
recently did a soft release of another cassette with a Bay Area artist named Noah, and he goes by Schless. So again on curiouspublishing.org/lo-fi, experimental electronic artist Schless. We just put out that cassette. And honestly, shout out to my new team who's doing a fantastic job. If you guys are listening, I'm very, very excited to see the new issue come out.
That's lovely.
Yeah,
If you
and
don't
shout out
mind,
to you
oh,
guys for inviting me. This was cool. Had fun.
oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been kind of like definitely you and the Curious Publishing, whoever you might have wanted to include on the cast as well. I was like, someday we have to have Rebecca and her team on here, or at least at the moment just Rebecca. Um, but yeah, it's been like incredibly inspiring, enlightening, all the experience and all the history and the opinions that you've shared. Again, just how organized and how well Curious runs. That's been it just kind of shakes how I see Camerata, how I want to rebuild this. So again, thank you for sharing your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm happy to come back. It's been
Thank
great.
you. Uh, Before we go, I'm going to shout out a couple folks. I first want to give some love to Local Fixture. I was mentioning places in Whittier that hold events and whatnot. Local Fixture is a beautiful little locally owned gift shop. They sell plants of all sorts. They sell locally made soaps and other bath and body type products. They sell books from local folks. They sell. It's very just a locally based business, and I suppose once things start getting a bit safer, they've also had a history of selling make or of holding makers markets where local artisans and local crafts folk come to sell their wares in this beautiful little vault room that's kind of at the back of the shop. So again, shout out to Local Fixture. Y'all are doing amazing work in Whittier. Um, ooh, I also want to give a shout out to a number of folks who have, dedicated some time and their opinions to a film project that I'm doing for one of my documentary classes. Um, I'm making a documentary about the music industry and the challenges that independent artists face with my team, AJ and Alonzo. Shout out to y'all over at Fullerton College. Um, but yeah, I want to give big thanks to Hannah and Steven from Shiro. I want to give big thanks to Jordan of Missing Link, Zach from Cosmic Kitten, and Nat, otherwise known as Flux Psyche. Thank you all again for offering your time and your experience for this documentary film that we're making. Will be on the YouTube, if you can call it that. It will be on YouTube this Thursday. So hope y'all enjoy it when it comes out.
Sweet. Definitely check that out.
Thank you. But yeah, that is the end of this podcast. This is Andres Marquez, your host, as always. And thank you again to Rebecca for, just sharing about 50 minutes with us.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
All right. We will catch you on the next episode. See y'all on the flip side.
All right.